I found another one to read, and this one I'm reading because it has my birthday in it. February 2nd, 1998. Alright. I recall my grandma's life and death only as I remember my mom telling me. From what I can understand, on February 2nd, 1998, my grandma fell victim to a car accident and died in the hospital sometime later. She was the last of my grandparents on both my mom and dad's side. This is my first time reading it, just like my other ones, so. The rest had died long before I was born. I was only 3 years old at the time, and I had a hazy recollection of attending the funeral and seeing my grandma within the casket. I also vaguely remember being quite fascinated, as my young mind had not understood the concept of death. I'd been traveling for most of my life, considering my dad worked for the United States Airlines, so flying wasn't much of a surprise to me, even though I was only about 8. And it was July 2002, if I recall correctly, and my mom and I had just landed in Chicago from Las Vegas, Nevada. We were planning to live. I still do. Customarily, we were driven by my Uncle Ray to my Auntie Linda and Uncle Joe's house out in Algonquin. It was a pretty large house. It was very cozy, to say the least. My mom and I shared a bedroom upstairs, which I believe was my cousin Lloyd's room before she moved out. A rather strange coincidence occurred. My mom, Aunt Linda, and Uncle Joe, and most of my relatives began to explain stories to me about our family reunions. This, in turn, led to talking about my grandma Lily, the one who the reunions became based around after her death. She was a great woman, very intelligent, very kind, and very loving. She flawlessly brought up my mom, my uncles, my aunts. She was the role model for what every woman should be. On top of this, she was very healthy and had no medical ailments before her death, even with her growing age. She had been in her mid-70s at the time, and possibly may have lived to a century, had it not been for that fateful day. Hearing those consistent, sincere stories from my mom, aunts, uncles, makes me wish she had lived so I could meet her. One thing so captivating about my grandma was that she was very loving, and she loved all of her children. Her children's children, her friends, and everyone around her. A warm heart. Then came a night that terrified me to the point that it still haunts me. It was about 2 days before the reunion. My mom and I were getting ready for bed. We had to share the one bed in the room, which didn't bother me at all since I didn't start sleeping on my own until I was about 9. It was about 9 or 10 at night at the time, according to the classical red text digital alarm clock that sat on the nightstand. I woke up in the middle of the night and glanced at the clock. I remember it being 1:36 a.m. Rolling my eyes and letting them adjust to the darkness, I saw my mom had left the closet open. As my eyes finally adjusted, I saw a horrifying sight. There was a white figure. My closet's open. Resembling an anthropomorphic cloud, vaguely shaped like a human, with no face and barely discernible limbs. It looked like it was about to sprint across the room, as if it were a blurry shot of runner in the middle of a race. I blinked my eyes and the figure had changed. This time, instead of looking like it was about to sprint across the room, it appeared to have hands behind its back. It was staring at me with its faceless head, and I could only stare back. Not knowing what to do, I was too frozen even to wake up my mom, who was in the same bed. I just stared with no idea what to do. I hadn't even realized how much time had passed. It seemed as if the moaning simply crept up on me. I recall still sitting up on the bed, having passed out from what seemed to be a short period of time. I woke to my mom getting ready to go to the mall to pass some time. I began crying, prompting my mom to ask me what was wrong. I explained what I saw that night to her. She tries to rationalize it being a white dress in the closet, but there was absolutely nothing white in that closet, only dark clothes. I searched it thoroughly to be sure of this. She had no explanation to this. She simply asked me why I didn't wake her up. I didn't know why then, and I still don't know why now. My Uncle Joe, Auntie Linda, and my mom all talked to me about it. They said it was probably Grandma visiting, and that I shouldn't be scared. It changed my feelings, though. I remained scared. It didn't change my feelings, though. I remained scared years later that I heard that if a spirit is a visiting relative or friend, then the hauntee won't feel fear when they see the ghost. Despite the awe and surprise, this observation scares me that much more, since I was scared out of my mind at this entity. I refused to believe it was my grandma. Up to now, I refuse to sleep with closets open. I'm scared to waking up to see something staring at me. I still wonder what I saw in that closet, whether or not it was my grandma. When I go back to the reunions, I make absolutely sure the closet is closed, and I sleep with the light on in that house.